Recording in progress.
Thank you very much. I call to order this meeting of the Public Safety Committee and ask for roll call.
Alderman Plefka?
Here.
Alderwoman Sims? Here. Alderman Lockmiller?
Here.
Alderman Erger?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. Anybody on the committee have a chance to look at it, wants to make any changes with regard to the agenda itself? Seeing no offering for changes, the agenda stands as submitted. Our third topic tonight is citizen comments, our first opportunity for citizen comments. If there's anybody in the room tonight or anybody online who wishes to address this board with regard to any issue of public safety in the city of Brentwood, you'll be given 3 minutes. Please step up and give us your name and address, and we look forward to hearing from you. Can at this point, absolutely.
My name's Jan Crone, 2656 Lewis Avenue, right off Manchester. I am concerned about the crosswalks that have been put in and the signage. My sister and I were driving west on Manchester at 6:30 in the evening, right by Kitchen Conservatory, and on the inside lane, 2 cars next to us slammed on their brakes. One almost back in, rear-ended the one in front. And we looked over, and when we looked up, there's a lady crossing the street right in front of us. And my sister slammed on her brakes, and we kind of screamed, and this lady just went ahead. And I am very concerned about the signage. One says, yield to pedestrians as you're approaching. The one that the pedestrian is seeing is cross traffic does not stop. So I think we need clarification, because somebody's going to get hit, killed, or there's going to be a crash. And those little blinking yellow lights, I don't even know if they came on. It happened so fast. And we couldn't believe the lady kept walking, because she could have been hit very easily. So that's my concern about these crosswalks. Something needs to be done. And I cannot believe they even put them in the way they did, with the signage being confusing for those of us that aren't used to stopping at a crosswalk if we see a person. That's all.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody online? Okay, thank you. I'll declare citizen comments closed and ask for our city administrator report.
Have none.
Thank you very much. We move on to the reports of the committee chair and alderman. As the chairman, I do not have a report. Alderwoman Sims.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmiller.
No report.
And Alderman Erger.
No report.
Thank you very much. Department reports. We'll first hear from our police.
Evening.
Evening.
Jason Simpson, for those of you that don't know me and I haven't met yet. I've been with Brentwood now going on 23 and a half years. And the reason we're here tonight is recently we've noticed, or for the course of the summer, an uptick in our nighttime crime. In the month of August, we had 5 stolen cars in the city of Brentwood. This past weekend was a busy weekend for us. There were several cars broken into in Ward 3, and I discussed that at the ward meeting last night. Car mobile. That car was then used in a carjacking in St. Charles City. And so what we'd like to do is talk about what does the police department prepare to do about or what are we prepared to do about that? And what I'd like to propose is a tactical pursuit policy. St. Louis County Police Department currently has a tactical pursuit policy in place, and the difference being, this is very similar, if you recall, in June of 2020.
Let me interrupt you, officer, just for a second. We have, under new business, item B is a tactical pursuit policy.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
So, but we are asking, if you don't have to have a report, but if you do have a report just about the normal operations of the police department, this is the time. And I apologize, I didn't make that very clear when I first called on you. But this is the departmental report consisting of, any housekeeping items, things like that, things you want to bring to our attention. We are going to discuss the tactical pursuit policy under new business.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's pretty much all I had for tonight, other than Major McIntyre is retiring. I think we all know about that. There will be some promotional processes taking place in the near future at the police department. We have 2 new officers that are now, one is getting ready to finish field training. The other one is about a month in, and they're both doing very well. So I apologize.
No, it's no problem at all. Thank you very much. Let me hear from the fire department.
Good evening, Ed Bernie, Assistant Fire Chief. Just kind of go over some highlights. The memo at your position since we met last month. ARPA funding, this is the grant funding that we've used to purchase some equipment, specifically the UTV that the fire department utilizes. The second half of that grant was recently awarded, so we're going to be hosting an all hazards incident management team course. This is the federal 0305 course, which allows command staff and others to function at a very high level in an incident support team, very similar to the functions we stood up during our massive floods last August. Using that particular system allows us to be robust in planning, resource management, and then at the back end of that, if there's any federal reimbursement, using a federal program helps with that process. Moving on, we recently received a letter that's attached to the report for our Medicare revalidation that essentially proves that we are an agency that is in good standing with records keeping, reimbursement, and treatment. It was a significant data and records research project for Lieutenant Herman, who is our medical officer. Again, no issues found. It's just the federal government asks for certain types of records in a certain format, and sometimes we have to reduce how we report it to them. We give a lot of information in these certain parts of it. Training update this quarter, just getting ready to start off, so we'll be continuing on with our facilities training. That includes live fire extrication drills, and we'll also just notified today that we're going to be participating in a region-wide operational readiness exercise. It's going to be happening out at Six Flags, so we're going to be doing high-angle rescue picks off of all of the elevated rides, which should be interesting. I think the last time I participated in that was like 1983, so it's been a while. And the rides are much more complicated now. Personnel update, which just I found out yesterday, which is not reflected here in your memo. I have my second newest employee, firefighter, paramedic, Tony DiPaolo, was recommended to come off of probation. He's completed his 1 year and all of his tactical assignment sheets. So Chief Cottrell is working on the personnel action form for that, but our recommendation is that he be taken off of probation and then moved up. And that just leaves us with firefighter, paramedic. Nick Simon is the only person, our last newest hire, that is still working through the process. ECDC update. We've had some issues voicing some concerns with the Regis group with their mapping, how they do the computer updates, how that affects our operations. I know we were all aware of the data breach that happened a couple of weeks ago, which did affect our operations, the way we receive reports. They are receptive to the concerns. I went to an operations meeting yesterday, and 2 reps from Regis were there essentially taking notes and writing down our concerns. We did query them on what they thought the solutions were based off of what we thought the solutions would be. So not being a total tech nerd, they offered some ideas that are way above my head. It's like, yeah, sounds like it should work, but we'll see. Proof's in the pudding. Regardless of what that looks like.
If I may interject real quick on that. So the Board of Directors had an emergency meeting today, ECDC Board of Directors, and we went into closed session to discuss that further. So other legal action will be taken.
Progress. EMS billing. So later on in new business, we'll be talking about the ESO contract. This is kind of directly related to that. What we're going to do is open up an RFP for an EMS billing vendor. Right now, our contract with EMS MC is getting ready to expire. They work very closely with our current ESO platform, but with emergency reporting being absorbed by ESO, there may be an opportunity to get another vendor in here and maybe get some economy of scale. But regardless, they will have to meet the requirements to work with the federal reporting requirements for all the EMS calls. So, and again, the key with that is the vendor works with us so that we get a reduced rate and we're able to, collect fees off of the ambulance runs that we're able to. Going along with that, HVAC bids, our service maintenance contract for HVAC for our fire station is up next year, so we're just going to advise that we're going to start the process to put that out for bid. Just a regular thing that we do. And then the Brentwood Days Festival, obviously we were all there. We saw that the crowds were much larger than the years past. We had personnel on site for both days of the festival. We did not do any medical treatments or transports out of the park. And then we did not have any calls for service that were affected because of Brentwood Days outside of the park in the regular community. So from our aspect, from fire and EMS, it was uneventful, although the crowd was big, and it was pretty much well behaved. So that's it for the department report. Glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anybody on the committee have questions? Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Yep. I'd like to call up Public Works. And Dan, given the public comment we got just earlier in this meeting, could you take things out of order and talk about item 3 there, Manchester Road, first?
Sure. Public Works has a standing meeting with MoDOT as well as other municipalities like Kirkwood, anybody that's on the Manchester Road Improvements Project on that alignment. So we have a weekly meeting, and we did talk about this, and it was brought up in a previous meeting. So MoDOT's taking a look at those mid-block crossings. So that would be like Manderley, Cecilia, up and down the alignment, all the way to Kirkwood and back the other direction. So of those crossings, there's 14 of them in their improvement area. Of the 14, there's 6 that need corrective action. Manderley is actually on that list. Some of the improvements they've talked about, they're getting costs together from their electrician, but it would be like adding signage to both sides. So what I mean is, like, if you're at Memorial Park, where we put those in, there's a flashing sign on both sides of the post on opposite sides of the road. If you look at the one like right by Public Works, it's Cecilia, it's the same as up and down the alignment. There's only one sign on one post that faces oncoming traffic. The other side doesn't see anything except the back side of a sign. So they're gonna try to improve it that way, put advanced warning signs, which they already have, but put beacons on those and probably do some pavement markings. So there's a bunch of improvements that they plan on doing. They're just working through the process and figuring out where the money comes from to make those.
Just for clarification, the meetings that you're having with MoDOT is the one that's actually having to implement these things.
Yeah, the
We're not in
roadways
charge of doing that.
Right, we wouldn't, it's State Route 100, so it's owned and maintained by MoDOT. MoDOT's contractors KCI, so really it's only the input of the city and observations that residents and pedestrians, feed back to us that we then give to them.
Thank you very much.
So hopefully that takes care of it, and whenever we have an update, we'll certainly put that on the weekly report and push that out. Going back up to the top of the list, Lidsinger Road at Bremerton, that intersection, we tried to put in the stop sign that we bought a while back. It's too big, so we ordered the next smaller size unit. It should arrive any day. We'll take the larger one and just keep it in reserve. It could replace the one at McKnight, the flashing one there, because we don't have a spare. So I was like, well, if nothing else, we'll just keep it if it ever gets damaged. Or if we need to put one of these up somewhere else, we'll have it. So that should arrive here in early October. Number 2 is Dorothy Avenue. If you recall, there was a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. If you're going northbound on Dorothy, just north of Manchester, it was wrong. It didn't match the plan for some reason, but it was made. So the MoDOT replaced it. There's a 20-mile-per-hour. It matches all the other signs. It's got the black backing. It's more of the more decorative backing to it than what we use. It's just galvanized steel. So that's taken care of. We already talked about Manchester Road. Hanley Industrial, the crosswalk closer to Hoffman Brothers. We've called in locates. We plan on doing that sometime in October. Right now, I didn't put it on the list, but I wrote it down for myself. But High School Drive, west side of High School, just south of Eager in the Brentwood Forest area, there's uneven slabs. They were on that west side, so we tore those out and we're forming up new slabs. There was also erosion because it's on a hillside, so that western edge was undermined. So what we're doing is leveling it, putting in a better base, and then brand new sidewalk slabs there, just because presented uneven surfaces, which was a safety issue.
Thank you.
So whenever we get done with that, we plan on jumping over to the crosswalk.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions from the committee? Yeah, Steve.
And I just want to be clear on these crosswalks again. So when a pedestrian comes up, pushes the button, those signs that warn the drivers ahead of time before they approach will also have lights that will go off at the same time?
They're supposed to. I know that we tried the one at Cecilia. If you press it, like when we're standing at Public Works, it starts blinking. It sends a radio signal to the one on the other side, which would be by Feathercraft, and they flash simultaneously. But when you're standing there, you only see the one that you're by. You can't really see the one on the opposing side of the road that's, trying to warn the people heading westbound. So when they put the new signs and sandwich them on either side of the post, it should be, regardless of direction, you'll see two signs blinking simultaneously.
Okay.
Which is how we have it on.
Which is how we have it. That's actually an option. What they did actually meets the minimum MUTCD. I felt belt and suspenders, so when I ordered mine, I put them on both sides.
From
Just-
Strassner, McKnight, places like
Yes.
that, right?
I just know that it's an option you can do, and that's what we did because I felt it would be better visibility, better awareness.
And as far as being a state highway, then there's standards for signage that, I mean, you can play within, but as far as a municipality, we can't really request anything up and beyond their
Correct.
standards.
And what they placed actually meets MUTCD, and it's really so that the pedestrian knows that the cross traffic doesn't necessarily have to stop. In Missouri, you yield to pedestrians, you don't necessarily have to stop. But I see the confusing messaging, because most people think, well, I'm standing here, they should stop for me.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yep. We have no old business. Move on to item 8, which is new business. The first item there is the reallocation of capital improvement funds for purchase of technical rescue equipment. Hey,
Good evening again. This presentation was, this whole project was initiated in the beginning of April. Due to meeting conflicts, timing, et cetera, this presentation was initially given to Ways and Means on September 7th. And then at that meeting, it was requested that the presentation be presented to Public Safety. So for some of you, this presentation may sound familiar. For others, it'll be brand new. So the background for this is the fire department has been very active in seeking grant funding for classes, equipment purchases, and projects. To wit, earlier this year, we purchased airbags that we had allocated $25,000 for the purchase. With a significant trade-in value and the cost of the bags being less, we saved almost $14,000 on that project. Flash forward to the summer where we submitted for a grant for our UTV that is now in fully operational service. It was a 50-50 match, so we had budgeted $40,000 for it. We are in the process of being reimbursed by the state for $20,000. So cost savings just from the airbags itself were $14,460. We're in the process now of continue to work through our strategic plan, specifically Objective 3C, which is increasing technical rescue capabilities. This is a Paratech Interstate Motorway Rescue Kit. The ask from Ways and Means was to come back with a bit more data to show a need. This kit that we're proposing to purchase would replace the aging air struts that we have on our current truck. Those will be rotated down and put on the reserve truck. The new package that we have will work for vehicle extrication, any vehicle that traverses the roadways in the city of Brentwood, any vehicle that traverses any of the roadways that we provide automatic aid coverage for as well. It's also interoperable with our structural collapse kit as well. So while we build wooden shoring to hold a building up, we do a temporary with air shores. These will do that as well. They'll interface with that kit. Some of the volume of traffic, that was one of the pieces of information that I didn't provide at the Ways and Means. I went to St. Louis County's GIS website, and the latest data they had was essentially from 2018. But average weekly traffic just along Brentwood Boulevard at the northern part at Eager, we're looking at 43,800 cars average weekly traffic, and then 44,000 on Fridays in that 24-hour period. Even going down to Brentwood and Manchester, we're at almost 30,000. And it's no surprise weekdays are the busiest times. But we do have a significant amount of traffic that goes up and down the main north, south, and east-west corridors of the city of Brentwood. Going a little bit further with that, you know, I did a 5-year data run just before the meeting, just to make sure that the alarms were correct. But a 5-year data run, we had 58 instances where we did some type of extrication or removal using with and without equipment, vehicles, people stuck in machinery, confined space, below-grade trench, and then a significant amount of rescued from stalled elevators. That includes in Brentwood and also in our surrounding automatic aid areas as well. Because this would be a regional asset, we would be the only department that carries this equipment right now. We would be able to interface with other departments, and we do run automatic aid with those departments anyway. So we would normally be booked in on a call for this type of equipment, if we have it or not right now. So for this presentation and for tonight, the ask is that if we could use some of the money that we saved from these other projects, and at your positions, we have the bid from Sentinel for this equipment. Again, this will be new on the truck. We were going to ask to purchase this in '25 anyway. We can get it now, and then that'll save future capital budgets for that request.
Okay, so thank you. So, Bola, can you give me some guidance here? What, this, with an expenditure like this is gonna head to the full board?
It will, not necessarily.
Really?
So Ways and Means wanted it to come here first and get direction, then it'll go back to Ways and Means.
Okay.
I think it will be, and the reason why I'm struggling with this is if their total line item is still within the authorized budget, no budget amendment is necessary.
Okay.
So what I would probably do, I'm thinking through this, would be under city administrator report, I would present it to the board so that you know that this is the recommendation out of.
Very good. So
Ways
now
and
is the
Means.
time for this committee to talk about the safety implications of this new equipment. Okay. So with that in mind, can you explain, I mean, you've done a lot of explaining about the allocation of funds and how we've saved money and things like that. Can you tell us just in layman's terms what this equipment does, and we'll be the only ones in the region that would have one?
We would be the only department in the region that has this particular interstate motorway kit. It essentially is a series of metal tubes that take an air hose, and they are able to extend to certain lengths to raise up heavy vehicles. As I presented at Ways and Means, about the only vehicle we would not be able to lift up for an extended period of time with these struts would be a fully loaded locomotive, the front part of a freight train.
So let me ask a question at this point. In the event that you would have used something like this but didn't have it at your disposal, what would you have done on the alternative?
We would have used the current air struts, and the selling point for these struts is they come in, I'll call it odd sizes. Most struts are in 24, 36, and 48. That's what you can extend them to.
Inches.
Inches, correct. Some of these are at 27 max, so you can get in-betweens without having to use either other airbags or cribbing blocks. Cribbing blocks are unstable when they're sitting on top of a strut, or the strut is on top of the block as we're lifting until we figure out a more permanent solution. So this gives us adaptability and flexibility. We have very short ones, and I think the longest one is like 40, it's 49 and goes out to like 52 or 53. So it's the length that these will provide that you wouldn't necessarily go stuck between the medium and the long. You could grab the medium and stretch it out and then not have to go to the long one.
Are they deployed in the same way that the previous equipment was deployed?
Correct. Yeah,
And
same
so
air
is-
fittings, same air connections.
So they're all compatible?
Yeah, absolutely interoperable. We do get a few more chains and ropes and straps that come with it as well, so that we can make a triangular configuration. We can also use it for rope rescue if we needed to build a tripod.
So is the main advancement here that it creates a greater variety of
It does. It gives us
tubes?
flexibility. because we are who we are, we will figure out a way to get it done. This just allows us to do it a lot quicker and more efficiently. And quite frankly, this equipment is newer. It has the newest technology. It's a little bit lighter because they're using a little bit more alloy in the manufacture.
Does anybody in the committee have questions?
On the old equipment, is there a useful life to that equipment, and are we there, or?
So there, as long as it passes inspection, it doesn't have any cracks. What wears out first on these are the O-ring cylinders that hold the air pressure in. You'll put it up to full pressure, and then you let it sit on the weight, and then you measure how far it comes down. It's very similar to how we would do a ladder test. You put a weight in the middle of it and see how far it bows. And again, those can be maintained, but the ones we're using now are a little bit heavier, and they don't have the alternate lengths that we're finding that we need sometimes.
And in order to get this done by the end of the year, in the memo, it said you needed to, I guess, have the order put in July.
That was at the recommendation of the manufacturer, and at that point, they weren't sure what their supply chain issues were. Supply
Okay.
chain issues are the buzzword. It doesn't, you can order whatever you want. I mean, I received something today that we weren't supposed to get until December.
Okay.
And it came in today.
Thanks.
Our UTV wasn't supposed to be here until the end of the year, and we got it like 6 months early, so I'm not a supply chain expert for sure.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? So at this point in time, the committee's considered it. Do you want us to make some sort of recommendation back to Ways and Means?
Yes.
Okay.
I can weigh into that.
There we
I mean,
go.
I think there were additional data points presented. It wasn't, we wanted to hear from this committee that, is this a thing that, not, can we afford it, what Ways and Means does, or,
Yeah.
but, is it appropriate? So rather than just, hog the,
Spotlight.
the spotlight and the
Yeah.
things to consider,
Yeah.
we thought that the,
Yeah,
prudent thing to do is to,
Right.
kick it to you. Kick
You're
it to this
just always
committee
thinking
first.
about others.
Yeah, that's what I'm known for.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, absolutely.
Of Bullet, at the end of the year, we do reallocations. I mean, why couldn't this fit under the type of reallocation?
It would be, what do you mean?
Well, I'm just for my own education. I just don't know,
To authorize them to go ahead and spend
what
it and
about
then
the
fit
timing?
under,
yeah, why can't they just go ahead and do it, and then it would show up as a reallocation at the end of if the
Because-
funds are
because-
already appropriated?
for something different. So they're looking to use savings to spend on this new project.
Okay.
That's the distinction.
That's the
And
difference.
this particular project was going to be presented in fiscal year '25.
So it's ahead.
Is there anybody on the committee that wishes to dive in and make a motion back to Ways and Means?
I'll make the motion to forward this on to Ways and Means for their consideration.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Only that I would like to have
So-
that be approved or not, rather than it just,
So would that fall into the rationale that you would accompany this with, or do you want that as part of the motion? Okay, so can we amend the motion to say that we're bringing it back to Ways and Means with a positive recommendation from the Public Safety Committee? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, would you
That's,
amend it?
that
way?
sounds like a great amendment.
Okay, would you be okay with seconding that? Okay, thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded that we send this back to Ways and Means with a positive recommendation. And is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Motion carries
Thanks,
by a
Chief.
vote of 4-0.
Thank you very much,
You
appreciate it.
bet, no problem at all. Yes, absolutely. Coming back up, we want to hear about the tactical pursuit policy.
So I'm sure you're all aware, the chief has been very vocal on some of the visitors we receive in these neighborhoods at nighttime. Some of these groups are dangerous individuals. They're heavily armed. And they come to Brentwood. And once they come to Brentwood, I usually pick on Brentwood Forest because there's no, there's no garages there, but usually they find unlocked vehicles or weapons in vehicles, or they steal the vehicle and the key fob's in the vehicle. We've recently had some incidents that I mentioned earlier, and what we are proposing to do is adopt a tactical pursuit policy. This is,
Bless you.
bless you. This is very similar to what we did in June of 2020, if you recall. There was a lot of civil unrest in the region, and although we did not have that same level of civil unrest here, we certainly had a lot of people in stolen vehicles coming out to our city and committing crimes. What we did then is we utilized tire deflation devices, and we utilized a tactical pursuit policy modification at that time in order for us to try and get these individuals into custody, and that was highly successful at that time. St. Louis County currently uses a tactical pursuit policy. St. Louis City currently uses a tactical pursuit policy. We are not asking for any funds for this at all. We are very well versed in this, along with our robust officer safety role-play training program. There will be additional training from the manufacturer of the tire deflation devices that we currently have. Without getting too far into the weeds on what the operational side of this would be in a public forum, this is something that we feel very strongly about. This is in addition to, if you're familiar with the saturation detail that's recently been put on hold, I think there's some changing of personnel out in town and country, and that police department was actually kind of spearheading that. Although I feel that was somewhat successful in identifying these groups that come to our neighborhoods at night, it was limited on the amount of arrests. And the reason being is we are usually kind of held back by our current pursuit policies. Anytime these individuals flee from the police, if they flee at a high rate of speed or they're recklessly driving, we immediately disengage because that's not safe for us and it's not safe for the general public. We weren't, during that detail, we were not utilizing tire deflation devices. We think this would be a good idea for us as far as sustainability with when we have these incidents in Brentwood, and please don't get me wrong, Brentwood is a very safe community. However, these things do flare up every now and then. This past weekend, it was Ward 3. In order to be able to respond to these incidents, we would like to utilize this tactical pursuit policy. This would not be something we would be out there doing every single night, but simply in a reactionary type of operation to these incidents.
Questions from the committee? Let's see.
And maybe I'm asking Bola this question, would we have to put together some type of a policy or procedure?
We would be, per our CALIA standard, we would have to draft the tactical pursuit policy, yes.
Okay. And then what type of, are there training of the officers in police vehicles for this type of
Yes,
policy?
we would incorporate this into our officer safety role-play training. So the manufacturer, I think, Joe, there's actually a written test that's required for the actual tire deflation devices. We would also incorporate felony car stops, which we do anyway. However, with this, without getting too far into the details, it would be a very robust training as far as how this operation is conducted.
Yeah, Sonny.
Reading the material, this policy would be in the directives or policy of Slate. I mean, that's what concerned me most.
I knew you were going to ask this question, so I have an answer for you. I talked to John Sharpie, who came before Ways and Means, maybe last month or the month before, and he says that there is nothing in the proposed pursuit policy, which has already been drafted, that would be non-compliant with Slate's membership. And I asked him, well, would this impact the premiums for some of our liability insurance? And he said, the liability premiums for Slate are determined by payroll and loss experience, so I wouldn't expect this premium to be immediately impacted. So it has nothing to do with that.
Unless, of course,
as a
police
result of
officer
this,
is injured
exactly.
because he's in a pursuit.
Absolutely.
And wrecks the car.
There we go.
When I was looking at the policy, I mean, it concerned me that, that we have this policy in place, and I'm I hear you, and I support the idea, but I'm concerned that, that an insurance, our insurance will, for lack of a better phrase, Monday morning quarterback the decision, and then, what recourse do we have? I mean, I'm worried that, like, I use my discretion, but can the insurance company then say, you used bad discretion in deciding to,
Well,
give chase?
As in just everything, they want the facts of the incident, and we would have to provide it, but I would hope that they would.
I think that would, and to your point, I completely agree with you. However, I think on a case-by-case basis, we get involved in pursuits on a limited basis now if it reaches the thresholds of our current policy. If that's something that a crime is committed that we are able to pursue for, we will pursue it. It's one of those things that, they're dangerous. Pursuing vehicles is dangerous, and that's why we're trying to introduce the tire deflation devices to try and slow those vehicles down. And in addition to that policy, our current policy states if the pursuit is or becomes more dangerous than the pursued suspects, do not pursue. That will also be in place here. Every time we have a pursuit, we go by our CALEA standard and by our directives and policies, and we do an after-action review and a review of that individual pursuit every single time. So I don't know the answer to how the insurance company would respond to if something like that happened, but.
We've talked about that with Chief Spees and with the city attorney. Full-blown pursuit is different from this, and that's not what this is, because then that opens you to greater potential liability, not just for the officer or the unfortunate person on the other side that gets impacted. So that's not what this is. This certainly is cutting edge. And I say that because I surveyed some of the other cities around us, and none of them are doing it. So that you have that for information purposes. And I don't know whether they're not seeing as much as we are,
I know
which is
Richmond
why
Heights
we're doing
I
it.
know Richmond Heights utilizes spike strips. I think they're about the only one in our area that does.
They do, okay.
There's a difference in these tire deflation devices. So for instance, our tire deflation devices that we have now are deployed by compressed air. So we set those up at one of the egress locations that we've predetermined, much like we did in 2020, which at that time it was eastbound 64 at Hanley. We see a lot of people that flee from the city of Brentwood on eastbound 64 and northbound 170. The spike strips that they use, and I think at one time we had them here, they were the Stryker spike strips, and St. Louis City Anti-Crime still uses these. Their mission is completely different than what an operation here in Brentwood would be. Usually in unmarked cars, a lot of those officers are in plain clothes with tack vests on, and they're jumping ahead of these pursuits, and they're trying to get into a position to stop somebody who's wanted for a violent felony crime or something like that, or a stolen vehicle. This would be more of a controlled operation to where we would have those spike strips set up and deployed. And if we don't get a successful spike on a vehicle, then we would not follow that vehicle.
And when you said you surveyed other municipalities and we'd be leading the charge on this, did they say why they hadn't adopted the policy?
They were just saying at this time, they're not proposing any change or to do anything like this.
But the county has adopted.
St. Louis
this
County
policy,
has, yes.
So this would
Yeah.
mirror that
And also
policy,
St.
right?
Charles County with their task force that they have out there in St. Charles.
And they've been very successful.
They've been very, very successful.
Okay.
Those are
any
my
other-
questions. Thank you.
Bet. Absolutely. Any other questions? Does this have the tactical pursuit policy, does this have a timing to it? Does it operate differently in daylight hours as opposed to evening hours?
We won't be conducting these operations in daylight hours, not in the city of Brentwood, not with the amount of traffic we have here. That would not work.
So, if there's not any other questions, I would entertain a motion to, let me back up just for a second. Something like this that has implications with regard to insurance, as has already been pointed out, and has implications as to general safety of our residents, I would like to see us give the full board an opportunity to weigh in on this, rather than us just
No, it'll go
making
to
a
the board.
decision. Okay, Great, so I'd like to entertain a motion, if somebody has one to give, that would recommend that this be considered by the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Carries by a vote of 4
Thanks
to
very
0.
much. Yep. Terrific. Thank you, guys. The last item under new business is, again, the fire department, the ESO Solutions Agreement. Been a busy night.
Steps into the day.
Right.
I had to wake my computer up. Good evening again. Thanks for the opportunity. At your positions in your packet is a memo requesting for us to enter into an agreement with ESO Solutions to provide the fire reporting portion of our records management system. We use ESO right now to write our ambulance reports, and our ambulance billing vendor, EMSMC, currently pays the ESO fee for that records management portion of the system. Our fire reports are done through emergency reporting. Earlier, and actually late last year, emergency reporting decided that they didn't want to be in the business anymore and approached ESO to essentially eat them up. So ESO jumped on that opportunity. It was about a 4-month window where there was some trademark and monopoly investigation at the federal level. So essentially, ESO now is the preferred vendor to take over emergency reporting. So this particular agreement is for the funding for us to do our fire reports with ESO. We're excited for this opportunity because it streamlines it. We have one platform that does all of our reporting now, and we can also track asset management, vehicle maintenance, everything else that we need to do short of payroll. I mean, ADP does that for us right now, but they have a module for everything, but we're not going to purchase every module. There's been some significant movement with the contract, or at least the agreement that you have here. Mr. O'Keefe put his eyes on it and made some recommendations for that. I talked to Chief Cottrell earlier this afternoon. He is in North Carolina at the ESO conference this week, so he has already been in contact with our account rep, the regional rep, and then he is having a private meeting with the director of marketing for ESO. They are extremely interested in moving this forward. They are aware of the language changes that Mr. O'Keefe has proposed. Our account rep, Jordan, has already forwarded that to corporate, and she says, I don't see any reason for us to not be able to enter into this. Her ask was that we sign this tonight and get it into effect, and we told her, no, that doesn't work that way. No. It'll get moved forward, we'll present it, but you're going to have to wait, and we have to do what we need to do on our end to make sure that it's vetted properly.
Very good.
So the cost here is in the memo. It's already budgeted in miscellaneous contractual funds, and we will get credit for what we've already paid into ESO through emergency reporting for this year, and I believe it's good until March of '24. The price may fluctuate because we're not sure what all modules that we are going to purchase yet. Some of the modules that we use in emergency reporting have been essentially consumed and don't exist in ESO. One module in ESO would cover 2 in emergency reporting, so we're not exactly sure until we get on the platform and get our data migration over. It may be less than this, but it certainly won't be any more than this.
Very good. Anybody on the committee have questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend to the full board that we enter into an agreement with ESO Solutions for the purpose of providing record management system to the Brentwood Fire Department.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Motion carries by
Thank you,
4 to
Chief.
0.
Thank
That'll
you
go
very
to the
much.
full board. I think it'll go in the October meeting. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Our last item is, again, for citizen comments. If anybody has a comment that they would like to make, please step to the microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes and, okay.
Jan Crone, Lewis Avenue. Not to beat a dead horse, but just to follow up on what the Public Works guy said, Dan. Just to be clear, so if we see someone approaching the crosswalk and we're driving up, we are supposed to come to a dead stop. Is that, I just want to be, so I can share this information with my friends and family and everyone I talk to that lives in Brentwood, not just in Brentwood, but travels Brentwood, Manchester.
Law requires you
So I just
to
want to
yield.
understand what we need to do.
The law requires you to yield. It doesn't require you to stop, but it requires you to yield.
Well, don't you have to stop to yield?
Well,
I mean,
a
if
yield
someone's-
would be a stop, but it's not, but a stop sign you have to stop at every time you come to it. This would
Right.
be a yield.
Only if there's pedestrians.
Correct.
Right. So if I get rear-ended, I can tell my insurance company, this is what I'm supposed to do. This
Yeah.
is what I've been told to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it just needs to be clear. And
Okay.
we've talked about it with my friends and family. So, okay, got it. Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else in the room or online that wishes to make a comment? Seeing none and seeing that this is our last item on the agenda, I declare this meeting adjourned.